Hello, my name's Roisin and welcome back to my channel. So today this is going to be a reading vlog. It is the Queer Lit Readathon and I'm going to the Lake District. So we've got lots of good stuff coming in this video. Normally at the start of the video I introduce you to all of the books I'm planning to read, but I've decided to try an experiment and see how it goes not doing that and just talking to you about the books as I'm reading them, when I've read them. Probably will be a wrap up at the end. So today is actually Monday and the readathon started yesterday, but I didn't film anything yesterday because I had a horrific migraine, but I did still manage to read a book. I listened to an audiobook and that book was Calypso by David Sedaris. David Sedaris is a humorist, a writer who writes essay collections, personal essays, and this is one of his essay collections that came out in 2018 and I think was probably written in 2017 because there's a lot of references to like the new president and like Comey that makes it feel like very late 2016, early 2017. I really enjoyed this book. Everyone who has read it has like said how good it is, and I really enjoyed it. There was one essay that was very much about defecation, which was not to my sense of humour, but the rest of it I really enjoyed. I think that he's really witty and wry. I love the like cutting, sly remarks he makes about himself as well about other people. It all feels very like in good humour. He says mean things about people, but mostly they're the people he's related to, and he does it in a way that feels with kindness rather than there's no malice, it doesn't feel like. He's very funny. It's reminds me of like Nora Ephron kind of style writing. I really enjoyed his perspective on everything, and I did find it funny and did laugh out loud sometimes, which was a bit awkward when I had to go to the shop, so I was laughing out loud. The one thing I would say though is that the audiobook is read by him, which is really great when it's in audiobook style, but I think 3 or 4 of the essays were live performance, and although the audio was fine, the quality of the audio was fine, my personal preference is not to have live performance involved because like the whole audience was just laughing at the end of every line, and it kind of made me feel disconnected from it because I didn't laugh when he just said the word ass, for example, which seemed to make some people laugh and doesn't really work for me. So whilst I enjoyed his humour, I didn't enjoy listening to other people enjoy his humour because it made me feel like, oh, am I supposed to be finding this more funny than I am? And took me out of the experience. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It definitely fulfilled the prompt of bringing you joy, and it was a good way to ease into the readathon because I haven't done an actual like planned readathon all year. The last time I did one was like October, I think. It's been a while. Today we are going off to Cumbria, to the Lake District, so we will be heading off shortly, and I have started to listen to the audiobook of the Book of Queer Prophets, which is 24 writers writing about religion and queerness from various different perspectives. I know that one of the introduction is by a lesbian who is a Christian, and I know that there's relation to Islam in there as well. I don't know if there are any other religions aside from those two, potentially Judaism, but I'm not entirely sure. I know one of the people was raised in a fundamentalist anti-LGBT religion, and so that's going to be talking about like religious trauma and stuff like that as well. It's a topic I'm kind of interested in terms of like progressive Christians and LGBT stuff, and I guess progressive Muslims as well, more so than I am in the religious trauma aspect of it, not because that's not real, but because that feels like it's going to be quite hard to read. So yes, I'm listening to that audiobook. I've got several other books to read, but now I need to get my stuff together because we're going on an adventure. Good boy. Hello. So it is now bedtime on Tuesday, and I haven't been very good at talking to you. So we drove up yesterday, as you will have seen. We had some car trouble before we left home, so we didn't end up leaving until the evening, which meant we didn't get here till 10:30. So then we just like went to the pub for a drink and then came back and went to bed basically straight away. So I barely did any reading at all yesterday. And then today we went on a walk. We went to the North Pennines and we did a 13-kilometre walk, which is about 6.5 miles, we were fell walking, so up the hills and everything, which was really, really nice, which I will show you now. Insert walk. But yeah, it's quite hard to like talk to the camera while I'm around people who don't want to be on camera. So I haven't been talking to you, but I have been reading today. So I am probably about a quarter of the way through Detransition Baby now. I'm enjoying it. It's very readable. I'm enjoying the like insights into each of these different people's perspectives and things like that. The three main characters. We've got Ames, who detransitioned, Reese, who is living as a trans woman, and then also kind of, we don't get her direct perspective. I can't remember her name. Katrina. Her name is Katrina, who is the woman that Ames is in a relationship with and got pregnant. So I'm enjoying it. It's very readable. The writing isn't perfect. Obviously writing is never perfect, but this definitely feels like a debut in terms of the writing. Like sometimes it feels a little overwrought. Major point, and then you major point, and then you major point again, which feels a little unnecessary. But I think that the characters are really well drawn, and I'm really intrigued. And I think that it's bringing up things in a very like light-handed, quite funny way, but it's still dealing with stuff. There's a lot of like dry wit and satire in this, which I'm enjoying. Not satire so much, but dry wit and like sarcastic humour. People being very, very self-aware. Everyone in this book is just so self-aware that they make fun of themselves and then but still do stuff anyway, which feels very New York, I guess. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I don't 100% love the writing. Then I'm also listening to the audiobook of the Book of Queer Prophets, which is a collection of essays, 24 different essays by different, each essay is by a different writer, about like the intersection of queerness and religion. And so we're just hearing a different essay where each of these people talks about that aspect. So far I've really loved, my favourite one has been by this woman called Winnie. I can't remember her full name, but I'll put it here because at the beginning of each essay they just introduce themselves by their first name. And she is an Indian American woman whose family are from Kerala, and it's about her experience of like Christianity in Kerala, and also as a like queer Texan woman who wants to be a priest. So it was really interesting and really well written. I also really loved Patrick O'Tuma's essay about being a gay man and Catholicism. Patrick O'Tuma is a poet that I already know from a poetry podcast, which I will leave linked in the description. It's a podcast that I really enjoy, but I haven't loved all of them the same amount. So far there have been 4 Christian and 1 Muslim writer, different denominations of Christianity, and different perspectives. Like actually one person is an atheist, but they were raised fundamentalist Christian, evangelical, I think. I hope there's a bit more variation in the future, like more Islam, some Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, all those sorts of things. It would be interesting to see different perspectives, because it feels like it might be very Christian focused so far, which is fine, but it's advertised as being like people of different religions, and I don't know if they just had to put that in there because they picked one guy who's a Muslim, and the rest of it's all Christian. But it's still interesting. It's still, but of course, what always happens in an anthology is you don't always vibe with all of them. So I'm not vibing with all of them in terms of writing style, but all of their perspectives are interesting to hear. Don't know what we're going to do tomorrow, except that we do have dinner booked somewhere very fancy, very, very fancy. So I'm looking forward to that. But I will see you tomorrow, and we'll see how I get on. church behind me here is a 10th century church, so 900s roughly, that was built here when the town used to be here, but then the town moved a mile away because it was in the way of his lordship's hunting. So most of the gravestones here are Victorian though. We do walk a mile from where we're staying to get here, through the gorgeous countryside and stuff, so it's really interesting. Earlier today we went on a walk, which you will have seen, and now we are driving off to a fancy restaurant. So we were supposed to go out to celebrate our anniversary, but the third lockdown kind of put the kibosh on that. So we decided to go somewhere when we were up here, but we weren't quick enough with booking. Everywhere booked up really far in advance. So the only place to go was this incredibly fancy Michelin-starred restaurant. So we're going to be having an 8-course taster menu. I'm very excited, but it is so expensive. But yeah, it should be really good, hopefully, fingers crossed. And did you know that Cumbria, which is the county that we're in, has the most Michelin stars in the UK for a county outside of Greater London? There are 11 here in Cumbria. Our little Nissan and all the fancy cars. Hello, so it's now Thursday morning. I've been not very good at updating you, but last night, as I said, we went to the Michelin star restaurant and I felt kind of awkward filming it in there. So here's a montage of the photos that I took of my food. I have finished reading the book of Queer Prophets and I thought it was just okay. I think that's always going to happen with an anthology, or often going to happen with an anthology. Some of the writers I thought wrote really beautifully, and those tended to be the people who are more writers, the people who are more activists. Writing's not their thing, so it was the actual writing style of their work wasn't to such a high standard. The stories themselves though were interesting enough, although I did feel there was a lot of repetition, which I guess makes sense because I feel like the main problem I had with this anthology is that it didn't know what it wanted to be. It was about queer people talking about religion, but it was very British focused and very Christian focused. And so if it had been like British Christians and ex-Christians talking about being queer or LGBT, then that would have been fine. But there was one Muslim voice and one Jewish voice, and that was it. And there were some American voices, some South African voices, but mostly British. And so it felt like it was trying to be more broad than that, but it didn't go hard enough at being more broad than that. So instead we got repetitive stories of evangelical Christianity in Britain, and not a lot of diversity. And so I feel like it should have chosen a lane, and it should have either been very much the British Christian focus, that was the predominant feeling, or it should have tried to be more diverse, and we should have heard from people from outside of the West, or people from Hindu backgrounds, or more Muslim backgrounds, different diverse Muslim backgrounds. Like the Jewish guy was having to talk about all forms of Judaism and how they reacted to LGBT stuff, and he was just one person, whereas the Christians did not have that same problem. So yeah, I felt like it could have been much more inclusive than it was, or it could have picked a lane and stuck to it. So it fell a bit flat for me for that reason. Although there were some really good writers in there that I would like to go and look up and do some more reading about. So today I'm actually filming a different video. While I'm here, I'm going on a bookshop tour of the Lake District, and that will be up next week, because next week is independent bookshop week, so I'll put that up next week. So subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to see that. But yeah, I'm also now about 3/4 of the way through Detransition, baby, and I am still really enjoying it. The story's really engaging. I like the way it's bringing up ideas about gender and about transness. I have heard the writer say that she wanted to write a book for trans people, and not like give cis people like myself a helping hand in, but it does feel kind of like a lot of the stuff that's that outsiders from the culture wouldn't understand is being very clearly explained, so it does feel kind of like it's written for outsiders to understand. I'm not knocking it for that, just that was interesting because I was expecting for it to not be so explaining of everything, and it is. Again, still, there are certain aspects. She loves a rhetorical question. So many rhetorical questions being used throughout, and moments of breaking the fourth wall that's not consistent enough to be for any specific reason, but just sort of randomly, sporadically thrown in there without any sort of understanding of why that's going on. So there are some little, like, niggles, I think, that are not perfect about this book, but I am really still really enjoying this book, and I think it's really good and well written. Generally speaking, there's just a few flaws sprinkled throughout, but it's a debut novel, so that's what you expect. Anyway, so I'm gonna go and get dressed and sort myself out, and I will see you later. Okay, so I'm nearly finished Detransition Baby now, and this is a very petty complaint that actually says nothing about the quality of the book, but does everyone have to be good looking? Does everyone have to be described as darkly handsome, devilishly handsome, pretty in a bland way, but at least pretty? Literally every person in this book has been described as attractive. Yeah, it's a petty complaint, but it's just... There was one man who was the attractive fake doctor, and then I turn the page and there's an attractive Italian bakery owner, and I'm just like, why? Why is everyone attractive all of the time? Can we have some ugly people? I'm sure there are ugly people in New York. So I am home now, as you can see, and my stuff that we packed is here, so clearly I haven't unpacked yet, so we're just home. I feel like this vlog has been very high on the b-roll and very low on me actually updating you about my reading. Because we've been visiting my partner's family in Cumbria, I've been socialising, so I haven't been like sitting down and talking to you about books. So I finished Detransition Baby yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really great book, which you probably know. Everybody's been really raving about it, and I definitely agree. I liked the ending. I thought that was really good. I thought that all of the characters were really well developed and really complex and nuanced, and there was a lot of talk about like identity and identity politics, and I think that it was a book that used its plot to discuss a lot of ideas, which is the kind of thing I like, but it managed to do that without being a book that doesn't have a plot. Like, it definitely had a plot. It was a really good discussion of ideas about womanhood, about trans identity, about queer family, and about queerness possibilities and where you think your life will be heading. I did find there were a few elements of the writing that I found a little bit annoying. Not super annoying, but like just aspects that were a bit like repetitive, using the exact same formula over and over again. And then I've also started Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi, which is the group book for the Queer Readathon, and I think I should probably finish that today because it's quite a short book. I'm enjoying it so far. It's told from the perspective, so it tells the story of a girl who is born with spirits in her, which is a Igbo belief. So far I'm seeing a lot of similarities between this and the death of Vivek Oji, just in terms of the like identities, etc. For example, the Tamil mother and the Igbo father is the same, and it's also true of Akwaeke Emezi themselves. And it does also have the same sort of lyrical, dreamlike writing style, although this is told from the first person plural, because it's told from the perspective of the spirits. I'm enjoying it. I like the way that Akwaeke Emezi writes, but I'm interested to see how this turns to be different, because obviously the actual plot is not the same, the actual central character is not the same, but I am feeling like it's a quite similar book at the moment. exploring different ideas, similar ideas and similar identities. So aside from that, I'm considering starting Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. as well. So hopefully I'm going to make a start on that this evening, and I can talk to you about it a bit later. Hello, so it is Saturday now, the last day of the Queer Lit Readathon, and oh, it's so hot here. I'm so hot. My brain is just not quite processing things properly today, but there we go. So I'm about a third of the way through Freshwater and a third of the way through the Prophets. So I thought I'd give you a little update on my reading, and then I'm going to go into town. I might wait. I don't know. I'm going to check the weather and see if it's going to get any cooler at any point because it's too hot. And I don't really want to go to town, but I need to. Anyway, so Freshwater, I am enjoying more now that it's got more into the plot, and kind of the point of these spirits living within the herd. And I love their writing style. I think their writing style is really fluid and beautiful and dreamlike in a way. It's exploring ideas of trauma and coping with trauma, which is interesting when I'm also reading the Prophets, because that's definitely a theme that's part of that too. So what I didn't realise going into the Prophets is that it's told from many different perspectives. We have the two boys, who, Isaiah and Samuel, who are like the main guys, but we also have kind of everyone else, all of the other enslaved people on the plantation where they are being held. We're seeing all of their different perspectives and their motivations, the way that they survive the terrible trauma and torture inflicted on them by the Halifaxes, who are the white people who have enslaved them. And so we're seeing lots of different perspectives on their relationship, and also lots of different perspectives on the situation, being enslaved, how you survive that. The writing style is really, really beautiful. There's lots of lyricism in it. It's occasionally a little purple. It goes a little into that purple prose territory, but not too often. It's often quite poetic and beautiful. It's just slightly oversteps the bounds for my personal taste occasionally. But I'm still enjoying it a lot. Obviously still very early days in it. It's very, very slow moving. Like everything just feels like an introduction and a setup for the first third, but not in a bad way, because again, as the writing is so beautiful and the exploration of character is so good, we can see everyone's kind of motivations and the stories that they tell themselves. There are some references to this terrible event. I'm going to hopefully go into town soon, put my headphones on, and listen to the rest of Freshwater while I walk into town. Maybe it won't be possible because I do feel so tired. Hello! So I did go to the shop. I went to the shop. I actually managed to walk there, and I got a hat and some sunglasses, which I was going to show you, but I left them downstairs. Maybe I'll show you them later. This is a bit chaotic. I am eating an ice lolly in bed because it's really hot. It's so hot. And I've been watching Americans, CJ from CJ Reads and Rachel Maxey, and they're like, it's 97 degrees, and I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I think it's hotter than here. But you know, our houses were built to retain heat because it's usually cold. I am almost through Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi, and I am really enjoying it. I just kind of wish that I'd been able to get the book and physical copy and not listen to the audiobook, which is strange for me because I love an audiobook. But Akwaeke Emezi reads this audiobook themselves, and whilst that's good because it means that the interpretation of the book you're getting is the interpretation that the writer intended because they're reading their own book, they're not an actor, so I feel like they're a bit deadpan, and they're not quite giving enough of a performance that I prefer in my audiobook. It just feels a bit the same level for all of the bits, which is kind of disappointing me and making me not feel as emotionally connected as I think that I would were I to read this in book form. The writing is beautiful, and I like the themes that it's exploring, and I think that the characters are really well developed and it's an interesting concept, but the performance of the audiobook is kind of annoying me. So but I'm nearly finished that, so I'm gonna read some more of Prophets now in bed with my ice lolly, maybe after my ice lolly. I feel like I'm such a disaster of a human that if I tried to read with my ice lolly a library book, my library book would be purple, so I may get onto that afterwards. Hello! So, it is Sunday. I thought I would show you my hat that I bought. It is sitting a little funny on my head right now. So, it is Sunday, as I said, which means that the readathon finished yesterday. So now it is time for me to do some wrapping up. And I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible because I want this video up today. But as I said, it's Sunday, And it's England's first match in the Euros at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to be going to watch that at a pub. So I need to do this as quick as possible. And it's also the hottest day of the year so far, so I don't want to be sat with the curtains open for much longer. So I didn't manage to finish The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. I'm definitely going to finish this. I'm not DNFing it, but I didn't manage to finish it as part of this vlog. It's got really incredibly beautiful writing, and it isn't going where I kind of expected it to go from the blurb. It's really exploring the different ways that people were exploited through slavery, and even people who thought of themselves as like good white people were not good, and also it's exploring the ways that people survived and continued tradition and culture from West Africa that they brought with them, that was kind of tried to be beaten out of them, but the way they tried to keep their culture, and how people managed to retain humanity whilst being treated completely inhumanely, and how people manage to survive, because that's one of the things that I'm feeling whilst reading this, is just how could you have resilience to survive that, because it's so awful. Enjoying is the wrong word, but I think that this is a good book, and I'm looking forward to, I will definitely finish it. So I did finish Freshwater by Akwaeke and Emezi, and it's really, really wonderfully written. It's kind of exploring themes of identity, and it's about a person who has Obinje in them, which are spirits in Igbo tradition. Emezi themselves has Obinje spirits in them. When they were talking through to Western people, it was taken on through the lens of mental health, and a lot of people are reading this book through the lens of mental health as well, but they wanted to consider what Indigenous culture means, and like let it be seen through the perspective of an Indigenous culture, rather than being assumed that the Western way of seeing things is the correct way, and delegitimizing and not believing in Indigenous understandings of humanity, or in this case godliness, deity, and how that, what it would be like, what it is like to experience life with multiple gods inside of one human body and one human brain. It's really, really beautifully written, and a really interesting exploration, and again, themes of trauma and survival do come through. However, again, I do really think that listening to an audiobook kind of hindered my enjoyment of the book, because it was read by Akwaeke Emezi, who is not an actor, and so sometimes it just felt a bit flat and a bit one note. But I really do think that that was just the audiobook, so I think I would like to try and read this book in physical form at some point, because I think that I might get more impact from it in that way. Most of the time I enjoy audiobooks and find that they give me the same or more impact than reading a physical book, but this time I really feel like an author reading their own book can be a hindrance because they don't have that skill. Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters, and this book is excellent, really good exploration of ideas. I also listened to Torrey Peters be interviewed on Call Your Girlfriend, and I thought she was really interesting talking there, so I will leave that linked in the description if you'd like to go and listen to her interview. I did feel occasionally was a bit repetitive in terms of forms of language used, and a little not purple prose, but just a little, there were occasional places where the writing didn't quite match up, but for the most part it was really, really excellently written, in the fact that the characters were so well drawn and so well portrayed, explore ideas, and there was lots of people thinking about ideas. She really made me feel the discomfort in some of these sections, or tension. I think that was done really well, and definitely will be interested in reading what Torrey Peters has to write next. Then I also listened to the Book of Queer Prophets, which was a collection of essays by different writers, and as always happens with anthologies like that, I got on with some of the essays better than others. I wish it had been more inclusive, because it was talking about queer writers talking about religion, but it was very much like 24 writers, 22 of them were Christian or from a Christian tradition, and yes, they were from different denominations of Christianity, but there are different denominations of Islam and different aspects of Hinduism, etc, etc, and so just making it be one Muslim person, one Jewish person, and 22 Christians, it felt very lopsided, and I wish there had been more diversity there. And then I also read Calypso by David Sedaris, which I thought was really, really funny, really easy listening, and I would definitely listen to his stuff again. He's very witty. There is a melancholy and a sadness to it that I wasn't expecting, but I thought really worked. It really brought like some pathos to the comedy. He's a very intelligent, good writer, and he like knows exactly how to take the piss out of himself, which I really, really appreciated. Some of the humour wasn't quite my style, a bit too much scatology for my personal taste, and also preferred the ones where he was just reading them rather than when they were being performed to an audience. But overall, I like them. I had a really great time reading the books for this readathon, and I had a lovely time in the Lake District too. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Please let me know in the comments down below if you read anything for the Queer Lit Readathon or if you've read any of these books. I would love to discuss them further with you in the comments down below. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you did like it, I will leave another vlog that I have done recently here and a button to subscribe there. I put out new videos 3 times a week, so if you would like to join us, I would love if you would hit that button. Thank you for watching. Bye bye!